Diane with Bolan-Beaty Boogie. This week on the show, Mark and I went back and forth a little bit about what we wanted to talk about. I try not to get too involved unless there's something that I feel I might be experiencing, and then hopefully you might be, and we're all looking for awareness about things in general. And he was talking about doing something like that, and then part of me was like, you know, I'm kind of done with the physical world right now, and maybe you could just help take us out of it for a little while and talk about what's happening over in spirit. And so that's what we ended up doing. But he was very sneaky because I didn't know he was going to bring one of my guides on the show. So I think it's a really interesting topic because I do talk to Mark a lot about, oh, you know, what did you do today? And he talks about that. Like maybe some people think that being in spirit is completely different than being in the physical. So he talks a lot about that, which I think is interesting. So I hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you soon. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yep. It's Mark. I came in. Yep. I came in fine. Oh. Hello. Yep. Okay, yeah, just checking out the space here. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. The body is a little stiff. I know. Yeah. I know Diane hurt her back last week. So, but yeah, she had some help. So things are getting better. Things are getting better in the body. Okay. Yep. So, again, I'm Mark. Hello. Yeah. What? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Mark from the rock band T-Rex. Yep. That's me. Okay. Yeah. So I'm here in the studio with some of my friends, and we are going to have, I think, a couple of guests, aren't we? Yep. Okay, let's get started on the show. Okay, so today's topic, Diane probably already told you, but today's topic is the day in the life of a spirit. Okay. Yep. And every time Diane and I speak in the evenings when we begin our channeling sessions, she always asks, "Yeah, what did you do today, Mark?" And I want to know what she does. Well, I know what she does because I can read the brain. Okay, if I want to. Okay. But she asks, you know, what did you do today, Mark? And yeah. So let's just talk about that. Okay, and Diane and I do talk about this a lot. So yeah, so what are some people's perceptions, okay, about what happens when you get back home into spirit, okay? Some people, yeah, well, let's just read the room here a little bit and the energy, okay? So some people are saying, there's nothing. There's nothing. Some people are saying they're seeing visions of spirits just floating around. And then others are don't know what. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit because it does appear to be a mystery to some in human form right now. Those focusing on a human body. Yeah. We like to make that distinction sometimes because you are a spirit who is focused right now in a physical body, but you will return to spirit and your life. So the life you're leading right now is not your what you would say your everyday. Okay, so yeah, let's bring in no, don't bring in the guest yet. Okay, yeah, just explain a little bit more. So yeah. So sometimes Diane will ask me, well, what did you do today, Mark? And well, obviously, your focus is going to be probably different in spirit. You don't have to make some type of income. You don't have to find a place to live. The non-physical is obviously going to be different because you don't have any physical needs. You don't have to have food. You don't have to, again, make money, right? Which is really, really important on Earth, having money. There's the sense of having. It's important to some people for certain reasons, for power, for control. But then there's every day you need to eat and clothe yourself and if you have a family. So that's all important. Okay, so so it is important. Okay. Even though you might not personally place a large amount of importance on it, it's a need. Yeah, let's call it a need. Okay, a need. So you don't have that. So what do you spend your time doing? If that's what you spend most of your time on in the physical, thinking about, what do you do once you get back to spirit? Okay. Well, there's a lot. Okay. Yeah, I think another misconception about spirit, even if you do believe that you go back to a physical, a spiritual life, is that maybe you meditate, or yeah, that you don't have what you normally have in the physical. For instance, friends and a soul, family. Right. Obviously, you don't have the DNA of a family, a physical family, but you do have a soul family, okay? And it's up to you. I don't spend a lot of time with my soul family. I do have souls who I've been, if I do a physical body, I tend to be around them. And you have a lot in common. You have a lot of history together. And they're very, 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 very close and dear to you, right? Right. But you don't, yeah, it's just like any family or friends you might have on Earth, right? So again, the difference between spirit and Earth is not really that large. In terms of that, in terms of what your physical life might be, your priorities will be different. Your priorities will be different. You don't have to, yeah, think about dying or leaving the physical and what happens after that. You've done it. You've done it many, 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 many times. Once you get back to spirit, you're like, oh, there's another one down, and then you look forward to what you're going to do again, right? So you can catch up with spirits who, yeah, maybe you don't know what's going on with them necessarily, and then you get back in the swing of things. That's what I did. That's what I did. And there can be. We've talked about this before on the show. There can be times when, if a physical body's been very challenging for you, maybe you dealt with a lot of unpleasant circumstances, or you did maybe deeds that maybe affected a lot of people negatively, or whatever, you did harm or whatever. So then you might have to go to what we call a soul spa, where you get help. We help in the sense of clearing out that energy, understanding why you may have done certain things, and yeah, and that's part of all creation. So that's part of what you are creating, being whoever you are. And yeah, there are other energies who can join you in this physical life. So let's say you're predominantly John, and you come into a physical life. You can bring other energies with you. You can. It's not always done, but you're made up of different amounts of energy, even in spirit, or different types of energy, even in spirit. Yeah, it's not maybe a different personality, but it can be different energies. Okay, so let's say, yeah. So what's the everyday? Yeah. What? Oh, yeah. Let's bring in the guest. Okay. So we have a very, 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 very special guest, and he is one of Diane's guides. You may have heard her talk about him. His name is Herbert. Yeah. Very French, very French, very French, very French. Right. Yeah. So yeah, can you come in, Herbert? Yeah. Oh. Here he is. Yeah. Well, no, yeah. Hello. Yeah. Welcome, please. Yeah. If you can please come forward a little bit more. Yeah. Well, you do have very, 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 very strong energy, okay? And I do know him very well. I do know you very well because I've had physical lives with you, especially in 18th century France, which is what you are still presenting yourself as. And you are Diane's master guru, okay? And she's still not. Well, yeah, you're still explaining to her what that means, and well, in the sense of what you're helping her to create and achieve, right, with her mediumship abilities, right? Okay, and you have been working with her a bit, right. Okay, yeah, so you are presenting yourself as, yes, okay, a teacher, okay? So this is very, very, very important, okay? So, yeah, a lot of spirits find that is something very fulfilling for them. Okay, either helping. No. Let's talk with you first before we bring in the other guest. Okay, so do you only help those in the physical? and you're saying, no, so he's saying no. He's saying no. But he's saying there are some spirits who only kind of focus on spirits who are in a physical body. But you've known Diane for so long that you actually help both, okay? Well, help in the sense of, yeah, so he's saying, yeah, let me ask you that. So is teaching, let's say, you know, everyone knows what a teacher is, okay? Somebody who has a certain amount of knowledge and is passing that on to other people, okay? And we've talked about this before on the show. If you're a historian, perhaps, yeah, you would present historic facts, and hopefully they would all be accurate, right? As much as they could be to your ability, right? But then you also might pepper that with your own opinion about things, right? How do you feel about that? And okay. So he's saying yes. He thinks it's important to present, well, facts. Meaning, well, yeah, but that's going to be much broader in spirit because there's a lot of things happening in multiple universes, galaxies, dimensions, right? So, yeah, so he's saying there's a lot more going on when you're in spirit than there would be in the physical. But he's saying, let's just use the physical world or Earth as an example. So, yeah, you could say, yeah, so he's saying, yeah, I could be looked up. I was a count right before the French Revolution. And we can go into that history, but no, okay. So he's, what? Okay, yeah, hold on. Right. So he's saying, yeah, so I could present my life as, or what you lived during that certain period of time in France, and a lot of it is documented, right? So there you go. But he's saying that could be in history books, but he would also have a personal history involved in that. And yes, he would have his personal opinions about what happened and what didn't happen and what was said and what should have been, or what he felt should have been done. All of these things, okay? And he's saying you can choose to be whatever type of teacher or influencer, I guess, is a term they might be using now. But for him, it's important to do both. Okay, it's important, right. Because he said he has seen spirits and even humans who would teach facts, and that's great. That's important. But you also, if you have a history with something, it might be important to do some type of personal thing. So that's what you like to do. Okay. But you will work with those in spirit, and you often do work with Diane. And you have worked with me before as well. Yep. Okay, so what is your role now? Now, yeah, you're showing very historic, so you're very much into history of how things have happened, how things will possibly, so let's look at, do you look at the future at all? Okay. Oh, yeah, for things that might possibly happen on the planet Earth, let's say. Do you look into that at all? He's saying certain trends, but obviously since spirit is in current time, you never know for sure what's going to happen. But he does tend to look at certain trends, and I do as well, to see which way the energy might be flowing. But you never know. You never know until it plays out in current time. Okay, yeah. So what are you working with specifically, if you can say, with Diane? And are you helping anyone else? Okay. Yeah, because obviously spirits can multitask. Yeah. So I can be speaking with Diane or trans-channeling through Diane, and then with one of my good friends. Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, okay? Yeah, so, yeah, can you let us know? Yeah, so he's saying he's helping, as I mentioned before, with Diane's ability to, to work in higher vibrations or higher frequencies, and what that will help her open up for her, what will help open up for her, okay? Because, yeah, we talk about this a lot between us. So you have access to what you know, pretty much, right, especially in the physical. So if you're saying, and it depends on the frequency that you're at, okay, and your knowledge base, but that's going to also be related to the frequency that you're at. So when Diane and I first started working together, she was connecting with a much lower frequency of Marc than I am right now, than who she is speaking with right now. Yep. And there's nothing right or wrong about that. It's just that at the time when we started working together, she only had access to a certain frequency, right? So I was appearing to her much more physical, much more as the physical Marc Bolan, and she looked, since she knew nothing about me at the time, she did spend a lot of time listening to my music and looking at photos and trying to figure out who I was as a physical Marc Bolan. But the more we work together, and it's been quite a while now, she sees different aspects of me since she didn't know the physical Marc. So now I'm really more the spirit Marc to her, because that's the one she's familiar with and that's the one she knows. And I'm different. I'm not the same. I'm not the same spirit as I was as a physical Marc, even though I have I have similar personality traits and so things like that. So Herbert is helping her expand her awareness more. And that's important if you want to continue developing yourself as a medium and working with spirit. And you will have access to more information. And so Diane asked for a teacher, and Herbert was already in line, of course, for the job. And then he introduced himself after a couple of weeks. Right. And that was very interesting, because Diane said that she would come. She meets her guides in a group, in a room. And you were appearing very gradually, so she could see a very ornate 18th century outfit. But you started from the feet up, and then eventually you were all whole in the chair. Right. Now, why did you do that? Well, he said that's just him. Sometimes it's better to be. So you're saying it's. Every spirit would introduce themselves differently, but usually a spirit would gradually approach somebody to give them a chance to get used to the fact that there's a new spirit coming or a new guide coming. Right. Depending. But that worked for him. And it's not. He's saying it's not alarming for Diane because she's used to working with spirits. But for him, that was what he wanted to do, and it worked well. But it might be different for somebody who's never worked with a spirit before. It might be alarming. So it's better to be a little bit more subtle. Right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, and I don't know if we have time. Do we have time for another guest? Okay. Well, let's just keep going here. So let's talk about. Okay. So. Since you work with both the physical and the spirit lives, is there any difference? Is there any difference with working with a spirit and a physical body? He's saying no, not much. But obviously, he's saying what I talked about before. There are differences with what's happening in spirit, what's happening in the physical. So you have to allow for that. But you do work with Diane when she goes back into spirit too. Now, how did you get the training for this? How did you get the training for this? And he said, no. I mean, he's had certain physical lives, and do you do a lot of physical lives in order? He said, well, you do have to have a certain amount of experience being in the physical life if you're going to guide somebody who's currently in a physical body. And he's saying, good point. He's saying spirits will work with gain expertise in certain areas. So let's say Herbert works with spirits who are on a physical body, maybe on Earth. And there might be another, and that's where you've had a majority of your physical lives, right? But you could also be a spirit who works with somebody in the physical, in another planet, in the galaxy, and you might specialize in that because it might be different. Right. So you want to work with, good point. Okay, so he's saying, I mean, our listeners may not have to worry or think about this now, but it's important too, because you might have the need for training or expertise or some support system that you want to have on earth. So what's important to look for? Okay, yeah. Yeah, and then you will have this as well when you go back into spirit. But he's saying, okay, so the most important, let's say you're looking for somebody to, it could be something just as easy as somebody to teach you French, okay? And maybe that's not as personal as if you need support for something more, personal, right. But so you have to look for obviously different types of people and different experiences. He's saying, obviously, somebody who maybe speaks, somebody who was born in France. Let's say you're looking for a French speaker or a French teacher, language teacher. Maybe getting somebody who grew up in France would be important to you. Maybe that's not as important as the fee they charge, right? But what he's saying here is it's important to find somebody who you feel comfortable with, okay? So that's going to be really important. Obviously, fee or where they're located might be another factor, but it's really important to have a rapport with somebody. And you can do that from a spirit level. And you might already know this person from a spirit level. And so that would be one of the ways that you could see whether or not you feel compatible. If you have a close working relationship with somebody in spirit already and you know them in spirit, then when you meet them in the physical, you're gonna recognize that connection. Okay, so he's saying that's something that you might want to look for. Okay? And he said that's going to be really, really, really important if you're working with somebody on a more personal basis, or something with not well, you get what I mean. Yep. Maybe it's a marriage situation or financial situation or something like that. Right. So he's saying that's very important. And what else would you like to say? Yeah. So, okay, so he wants to talk a little bit about, I don't think we have time for another guest, but let's just continue on here. He feels like the continuation of knowing that you are going to have another life after this one is important, and that it is a fulfilling life. He said that he is much more fulfilled in spirit teaching than he was. He said you didn't teach in that physical life in France. You were aristocrat. You were royalty. You were a branch of one of the royal families in France. So you were very wealthy, but you tried to do your best. You knew what was coming. And it did make you sad. You're saying that it's not that you owned lands and people were working, and so you knew that you were making profit off of these people, but you tried to give back as much as you could, and it was frowned upon. It was very, very much frowned upon, and so you had to do it kind of in the dark. And he's saying, he didn't turn away from his birth privileges, but you did try to make it as you gave up a larger property for a smaller property, so you could do that type of thing. So he's saying everyone makes choices about how you want to live your lives, and you're saying in spirit it's the same way. So you'll have choices, okay? And Diane and I talk about this a fair amount. So I said you can sit like you could in the physical. You can sit in a room or sit in a space and do nothing. And if that's what you want to contribute, if that's what you want to create for yourself, then that's fine. No one's going to judge you. No one's going to say anything. On earth, it might be a little bit different, but in spirit, no, because there's support systems in spirit, but no one's telling you what to do. No one's telling you how to do it. You're responsible for yourself. Okay, you're responsible for yourself. And it is it is true on earth too. But that gets a little bit foggy depending on what you want to do. But again, that would be your choice. So when you go back into spirit, you can decide what to do with yourself. If you want to help others, if you want to create new aspects of yourself, if you want to travel, if you want to learn, if you want to What else? What else could we say here? Yeah, create. Well, I create a lot. I create a lot. Right now, I told Diane I'm hovering. I'm hovering over the earth a little closer, and I think we did talk about that because I have some friends who are getting older on the earth, and they mean a great, 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 great deal to me. So I'm around if they need me, and they know I'm around, right, right, right. So that's what I'm choosing to do right now, and I am spending a lot of time doing that. And I do meditate a lot. I do meditate a lot, and it might be different form of meditation than you would take on the earth, but it's still very similar. And what? Do you do that a lot? Do you meditate a lot? He's like, no, not so much, not so much. But, yeah. So he's showing me an image of him learning. So you would be more apt to learn. You're showing me reading a book. Yeah, reading a book, something like that. So knowledge base is very important for you. So you might spend more of your time doing that. And you don't travel as much, whereas I do travel a lot. I do travel a lot, and I like solitude. I like solitude, and that might seem unusual for someone who is a rock star. But I had a small group of friends. I did have a small group of friends. And so, yeah, but if you didn't know me, then that might seem very unusual. But yeah. So you're saying, Bear, that, and as I've said, there's not a great deal of difference between life in the spirit world and or on the astral and in the physical, right. But there is. I mean, yeah, other than the physicality of one versus the other, but what you do every day is not really going to change that much. But what is going to change is that you are going to be, it's really going to be pointed out that you're responsible for yourself, okay? And what you do with that is up to you. Okay, so let's say, okay, do you think there are other options or more options in spirit than there are in the physical? And, okay, what do you think of that? What do you think of that? Okay, so he's saying not necessarily, because there are so many options available to you in the physical, but there is more awareness. Okay, there is more awareness. There's a lot of awareness, obviously in the physical, but you also have to work at that. But every day when you do something, you're growing your awareness. You may not realize it, but you're growing your awareness. You might change your viewpoint about something that you really felt strongly about before. That would be growing your awareness, okay? And that expands the planet. Likewise, right? Yep. Okay, so he's saying your awareness will expand when you get back into spirit, but the possibilities for you are the same, okay? Yeah. Great, very interesting. Okay, what? Okay, they're saying our time is kind of running out. So yeah, we will, so we got to shut down the show. Okay, pretty soon. Okay, anything else, Bear, that you'd like to say to our viewers, our listeners here? Okay, yeah. So he's saying, if you can, put a priority on the expansion and creation of yourself, okay? He's saying, try to stop a little bit. And he said it's very difficult at times, okay, to take time for yourself, depending on what your life is, okay? But he's saying it is important because then you won't be so, what are you saying? You won't be so, well, he's saying you won't have to play as much catch up when you get back to spirit. If you allow yourself to, tune into your creativity as a being, as a spirit. And he said it's really quite important when you get back into spirit, because that's a really, 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 really big aspect of who you are. He said sometimes when you get down into the physical, just the physicality of, like we were talking about, making money, buying a house, feeding family members, learning, going to school or whatever. Sometimes that takes priority. And most of the time it does, okay? And then you tend to cut off some of the aspects of spirit, and which is a big part of creativity. So he's saying it's really important, if you want to learn a language, go ahead and take some time. Do it whatever way you can. If you can't afford to pay somebody, then do it another way, do it on what you're saying, online, yep, something like that, or find somebody who might teach you locally, or go to a school. Yep, there are some schools where you don't have to pay very much. If you want to travel, try to find ways of doing that. He's saying libraries are always around, so you could always find a book to read. So he's saying, what? Yeah. So yeah, and it's easy to get bogged down in the physical life, but remember always that you are a spirit, that you are a creative being, and that any way that you can expand yourself creatively. Yeah, it's time for me to go. Yep. It is going to be very important, or it is very important to who you are, and it will make a difference in your life. Yep. Or yeah, he's saying too, a fun thing is just watercolor, something like that, or doing some type of artwork or craft work. And he said, yeah, like local, what are they called? Well, okay, Diane's brain saying like a community college type situation where you can go and just take some time for yourself and learn something new and be creative. And it's very, 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 very important to who you are as a spirit. Okay. And so he's just asking that, that's not forgotten. Okay. Thank you, Bear. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Well, we were thinking about having you, and we did discuss it a while back, but I didn't tell Diane. No. I wanted to surprise her. Yep. Okay, so we did. Okay. So thank you very much. This is Marc signing off, and we'll be back soon, right? Yeah. Okay. Bye. Yep. Goodbye.